Welcome.
Right.
Ms. Mary Redmond is
That
here.
it can tie into existing conditions.
I'm
Okay.
gonna ask everybody to go ahead and put their stuff on mute if you haven't already. And welcome to our quarterly soft skills series. And I am thrilled personally because Mary Redmond is my hero and I want to be just like her when I grow up. So I am really excited to be sitting through this with you guys today. Miss Mary, I think we have just about everybody. If you'd like to give a couple more seconds for people to log on, but it looks like we have a pretty full room.
But I can't see your faces. Anybody going to be brave enough to let me see you?
And I have my dog with me too, so no worries if you have your
you.
pets, everybody. I have my Peaches, my golden Aussie doodle is with me today, so.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, wait. Anna, can you all see the slide that we're opening with? Yep. All right. Perfect. Okay. So how's everybody doing with snow again? If you flip on your, until we start, just flip your sound back on.
I'm in Denver. We haven't had much snow, but it's been freezing.
I have some friends who were all this week on vacation there, but I think they're up in the mountains. I don't know.
Well, you know, I was in California when the storm hit, and it wasn't much warmer there.
Northern?
Southern. It was cold.
Yikes. Yikes.
That's true. I just came home from Santa Barbara like a day and a half ago, and it was not warm. It was like 60 degrees.
That's not fair. It's supposed to be 70 in Santa Barbara now. Ah, shucks. Well, it just means St. Patrick's Day is soon, and it'll all be better by then. My uncle, who lived to be 80 and Irish, said you have to have your potatoes planted by St. Patrick's Day. So if the ground is, you can break the ground, and spring's almost here.
Maybe I
Are we ready to go ahead?
I think so.
Let's do it. Let's do it. If you put yourself all back on mute. Thank you for the weather report. As you heard, I'm Mary Redmond, the Fearless Negotiator. And I made that name up about 8 years ago because it's how I've lived my life. And I'd like to say that fearless really is said fearless, because I have over the years learned that I fear less when I follow a process, when I take steps to let me know that I'm not on like ground that I haven't treaded on before. I have followed a path. I have followed and developed a process that works for me. And do I get everything I want? No, I don't. That's life. However, if I never asked, I wouldn't get. So my tagline, and what we'll open and close with, is if you don't ask, you won't get, you don't get. And perhaps you live your life that way as well. I'm not going to give you a whole presentation of slides. We're going to open with a few slides that give you an idea of where and philosophy that I have that works for me, and want to share that with you. Many of you have been negotiators for probably, well, with the age of some of us, 10 years to probably 25, 30 years, we've been negotiating. If Sam were on here, I'd hate to say how many years Sam's been negotiating. I have the feeling Sam was negotiating when he was born. Negotiation is a process. And my bottom line philosophy, and let me tell you where we're going to go today. I'm going to help you with how do you prepare for it? Many of you have been doing it for a long time. What I hope that this program will do is you have processes. Many of them work just great for you. Keep them. Don't stop. Keep doing them. There's some that you go, well, I used to do them and they didn't work then, so I'm not using them again. And there's some that you tried once or twice lately and you go, I'm not using that anymore. It didn't get me where I wanted to be. So I'm not trying to change everything you do or even suggest that you try to change it. I just want you to know that many of the things you do are perfect. Stay with it. I'm challenging you to try some new ones. So we're going to refresh your skills, and we're going to look at win-win and what that philosophy means. I'm still one of those old-fashioned win-win people. We're also going to look at how do you negotiate, how do you communicate with people. And we'll talk about the benefits and what's not so good about emails, texts, Zoom or video, and then the old-fashioned telephone, and see some pros and cons about each of them. And then we'll touch on body language, because that's another area that I absolutely adore. And I've learned a whole lot from it. Now, this is one of your members, Ken Scott. And look at that title. If you've ever seen it, when I asked him, I said, now, what is your title? Long title. Ken was on a program of ours last year, almost a year ago this time, one of our ifmaKC chapter programs. And what I heard on that, and I'll talk about it more, intrigued me so much. I had a conversation this week with Ken, and this was the final saying that he ended our conversation. It's the people. In the end, that's all that matters. And that gives me chills when I realize that everything we do is about the people, whoever they are, whether they're colleagues, whether they're bosses, they're the loved ones at home, they're the people you serve with on committees. If you're on the board of directors, it's all your fellow board members of ifmaKC. So it's about the people. And when we talk about the people, we have to take the time to get to know those people and to trust and to develop credibility between us. And that doesn't come like that. And that's the other thing that I hope many of you believe and know from business is trust doesn't come overnight. There's another saying that says, people, all things being equal, people will do business with people that they know, like, and trust. We'll do business with people we know, like, and trust. That's the bottom of my philosophy as well. So what is a negotiation? And I read this one this week, a quote from a fellow, and this is one of the best negotiation books I've ever read. And it's the only negotiation guide you'll ever need. And it's by Peter B. Stark. There's a whole lot of other Peter Starks, but this is Peter B. Stark. The only negotiation guide you'll ever need. And I am finding things, I wish I'd have written this book because it's marvelous. It truly is an amazing book that covers everything I've needed to know about negotiation. So where are we going from here? Well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to stop share. And we're going to talk now. We're going to talk about how often do you negotiate? When I've asked buyers in a large corporation recently, they said, oh, I never negotiate. Or yeah, I negotiate a couple times a week. So I'm going to ask you to reply in chat, and Rose is going to help me with this. I'll give you some choices. Do you negotiate often, seldom, or all the time? Now hold off, don't send that in yet. Everybody type your answer in. And then when I say go, okay, it's often, seldom, all the time. All right, go. I see you're working. Rose, have you got them all?
Yeah, we got a lot of often. Ooh,
Often. But
all the
not
time.
all the time. Not all the time. That's interesting. For me, it's interesting because what?
Julie was our all the time.
Who said all the time?
Julie Robinson.
Oh, yes, Julie.
And Randy just popped up with an all the time.
Randy, you could change it. I know you're always negotiating. What I want to share with you is my philosophy, which is My first negotiation is when the alarm clock goes off. And I hit snooze. And that snooze is a negotiation between me and an inanimate object. Snooze, probably 3 times. I have any other, put your hand up. Anybody else who hit snooze? Rose and I are honest. My last negotiation, thank you, Rose. My last negotiation of the day is the alarm clock again. And I finish my day perhaps with a lie. And that's not a good way to go to sleep, because I tell that clock, oh yeah, set it for 7. I'm not getting up at 7. A friend of mine recently posted a picture of sunrise. She's in the restaurant business. It was sunrise. And I said, that's really beautiful. So that's what morning looks like. That's dawn. Her world starts her at probably 5 a.m. I'm not that kind of negotiator, but the first negotiation and the last are with clocks. And it goes on from there. Let's think about the types of negotiations you have. What do you want to wear? Are you working at the office today? Are you going to work at home today? Are you doing this virtually? What is the plan for today? What am I going to eat? Am I going to be healthy? Am I going to eat that box of donuts that I bought yesterday? One time I was going into the office and I went by a, what was it, Krispy Kreme? And the flashing sign was on, and there was a dozen donuts with my name on it. And I said to myself, I'm going to take those to the office. And I ate 5 of them in the parking lot. I negotiated with healthy and not healthy. And life sometimes happens like that. I have bad negotiations and I have good ones, but I'm always negotiating. So where are we going to go with this? I asked purchasing managers, and just to give you some feedback, because we had only Julie and I who say we negotiate all the time, and Randy. I asked 65 managers in a workshop I taught before we got together. And I said, why do you not negotiate? Because we make a choice. Do we or do we not? Do we die on this hill? Or do we say, it's not worth the trouble? And I found out 56% of those buyers, and remember it was 61 or so, and their bosses said, I'm afraid to negotiate because it might damage the relationship. Damage the relationship. That surprised me. I'm assuming that they had long-term relationships with most of those suppliers. 43% said the supplier won't negotiate with me. I thought, why not? I'm the customer, they're the supplier. Why won't they negotiate with me? It would be a win-win if we did. And 39%, you won't believe this, 39%, well, they might be angry with me. So what do you think? Angry? What's that all about? Those are the fears that many people react to and choose not to negotiate. So what's in your negotiation toolbox? Step 1 is research. How do I prepare? How do I get ready? What do you think? Does Andy Reid of the Chiefs, does he do a lot of homework? Who's unable to play today? Who's been arrested? Who can go out on the field and who can't? Who's hot, who's not? So he does his research. Type in some steps if you would, and I like to be interactive, so I know. What is when you're getting ready for a negotiation, what kind of research information do you want? Pick one thing that you want to know about your, if you will, co-negotiator, the folks you're going to negotiate. Just tell me one thing that you always do before you make that call or get on that Zoom, or send them an email. Are we getting? Go ahead. I'm not going to time you on this, but give me one thing that you do. And then I'm going to ask Rose to give me some feedback on that. I like to know what our best practices are, how they value the relationship. Oh, Lisa, I like that.
Yeah.
How much is it worth to them? How important am I to them? Get any others, Rose?
No, I was thinking I cyber stalk everyone before I go anywhere. So that's how I do my
Cyber stalk, yeah, I'll stalk them. Oh, I'm all over that. I was helping a woman who worked for in the aircraft industry, and she was asking a supplier for because the equipment she had acquired for her facility didn't produce parts at the speed that the supplier had promised. She was going back for a $13 million refund on the equipment. I don't know what the price tag was, but it was $13 million. And she asked me to coach her. So I do a lot of coaching of people for strategy and tactics. And I said, well, what do you know about him? Nothing. I said, nothing. I said, have you, like Rose, stalked them? We've got a lot of places we can do research, but I really encourage you to research and do it online. That's one way. One of the best ways I choose to do it is to online find as much as I can about them and their company. Are there new products this company has introduced? Maybe. Have they had senior management changes? Have you read about them in the news? What's going on with them? What's in it for me and what's happening to them if they're having challenges? Most people are having supply chain challenges, transportation challenges, employee. I talked to Pam Dawson of our chapter, and Pam said, you know, some days people are out sick. Someday I have a full crew reporting. She's project manager. And one day, you know, they're short people and they can't do the project. So another team pulls in to complete the project if they have that other team. So I'm sure all of you are dealing with it short, you know, short on staff at different times. So we research. Then what do we do next? And by the way, here's I always call, you know, I might refer to us and them. Is that polarizing? Yeah, us and them. What I prefer to call them is either co-negotiators or, and I'm looking at this, counterparts. Counterparts is a word that I feel like there's more feeling, or we're setting the stage for more win-win relationships. So jot that down, perhaps, if you like, that either co-negotiator or counterpart. And I learned that again, not that I'm pushing this book, but he's got some good stuff in here. Peter Stark, he was on a Zoom call and did a program I saw recently. So co-negotiators. And I said, next, after we do research, is we want our needs and our wants. And this was another piece I hadn't thought of. Research your own needs and wants. Give me one word in a chat that says, what do you need from a supplier? Doesn't matter whether it's a building project, it's delivering some parts, it's upgrading your HVAC system, it's putting in more filters, it's cleaning supplies to keep your building. What is the first thing that you're thinking of for the needs and wants of your supplier? What?
Honesty, a partnership.
Honesty. Yeah, I want them to be honest with me. Definitely.
Reliability.
And how do I come to assess honesty? It takes time, doesn't it? It takes time to get honest. Anybody else give us anything on what do they need? Responsive. Yeah, that usually says I've either done business with them before, or I check out other people who've used them and said, well, they're good for this. They're really timely. Right now I'm bidding out some work. Well, I'm not bidding. I'm finding a contractor for a remodel in our home. So far, 6 contractors, 6 that I've talked to. One said, I don't do that stuff. well, I wished I hadn't wasted my time. Somebody referred me to him. The bid differences are from 35,000 to 80,000 right now. That's a big gap. I'm going for number 6 or 7 this weekend. Talk to another contractor. So do I trust them yet? I have to call more people to get references. Anybody else share anything about what they want? The trust is important, the honesty.
Maria said common ground, which I appreciate that because common ground is hard to define even.
It's hard to define, and maybe it speaks, there are implicit and there are explicit issues here when I prepare. When I prepare, it's really, the needs and wants are easy. The price, the delivery, the time, the warranties. What's the maintenance like? Are they going to maintain it? Or do I maintain it? How much is that going to cost me? Those are, we can find those in books. We can find them pretty easy. What isn't easy is the implicit things, which are kind of some of the things you all think of. Implicit needs and wants are harder to define. How do I find out? Can I trust them? Are we going to have a good time as we grow together? When I talked to Ken Scott, again, our member from Cap Fed, Savings and Bank, by the way, he corrected me. It's an old-fashioned name I heard of. Anyway, he said he'd been dealing with suppliers for 25 years, the same suppliers. You talk about loyalty. How much does that loyalty get you? What's the longest time you have been dealing with a supplier? Give me a number. Give me a number. What's the longest term supplier you have worked with? I really value that. So text or chat, if you would. Ken had 25 years with one, and I won't name them, but he's very loyal. And he said he walked through Neocon and he looked at all the suppliers and he said, you know what, guys? Everything here is, you know, maybe the beige is a little different, but they all say they're going to deliver on time. He deals with one particular supplier when all things are equal, the same one, because he knows them, he likes them, and he trusts them. So what's the longest? Does anybody reply?
It says 20. Julie
Woo,
has
yeah.
15.
What, 16?
Yep, 15, and then 10 plus Lisa has before she changed organizations.
16 to 20 years that you've been doing business. That's wonderful, because what it tells me is that you have loyalty to your suppliers. Now, when things get tough, like COVID, and again, I counted on Ken a lot to share with me, and sorry I didn't get around to all of you, but Ken said, and this was on the webinar, the panel he did for a chapter. He said, if we had not had those long-term relationships with suppliers when COVID first hit, and he said, you know, we had the doors closed at the bank, we had the doors open at the bank, and open and closed and open and closed, and schedules changed, and masks and no masks. Isn't that the world you all have been living in? And he said, have we not had loyal employees and great relationships with our suppliers, we wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't have been able to serve our customers. And I bet for many of you, that's the deal. Loyalty and trust and long-term relationships. And that didn't start as COVID doors, you know, as COVID hit us. Those are things that we've been dealing with for a very long time, those trust relationships. And how did you develop those relationships? How did they come about? Maybe you had lunch together. Maybe you talked occasionally. When I was dealing with a group of buyers from another company, not the one I'm talking about, they said, we don't have time. We don't have time to chit chat around now. And I thought, perhaps you don't have time, and it will cost you later? What if you knew today, if you said, I don't have time to talk to them, especially when it's a new supplier? How will you ever get through the tough times? I bet many of you had to rely on long-term relationships with your suppliers because you were asking them to do the unusual, the amazing. You asked them to leap tall buildings and come through for you. And they said, well, you pay on time. You treat us and all of our people with respect. When our installers come to your facility, they're nice to us. They treat us well. And when you pay on time, when you treat them well and with respect, and you become partners, when supplies are limited, they're going to find supplies for you. When people are out sick on their staff, they're going to rearrange teams so they get your project finished on time. And that loyalty volumes, it will save us money, and it will keep our employees as well. And I said, well, if Ken treats his suppliers that way, how does he treat his employees? He said, the same way. Respect. We have a personal relationship with our employees. Out of the 800 employees that the bank has, they finished with 799. They did not lose anyone except for this one man. And I asked him, I said, what happened to the one guy? And he said, unfortunately, he died. Ooh. The bank finished the worst, the first year of COVID, with everybody intact. Now think about the Great Resignation. Why are people leaving companies? I know you've read a lot about this. Why are people leaving? Because I said, my employer, one of the reasons, my employer doesn't care about me. I could be here or I could be gone, and no one cares if I'm here. I know that when you hire to the culture of the company, the culture to the company is deal with everyone with respect. If the employees trust their employer, they're not going to run away. If the employer listens and says flex time, when you all say flex time, thank goodness many of the companies that you all work for have said yes to flex time. And I think that will save many people. I was looking at the statistics of how many people resigned, left their companies in the month of November and December, and it was over 10 million people quit their jobs in November and December. Some were early retirements, but many left their companies because they didn't feel that they were appreciated. So when we have to negotiate with someone over an employment package or contract within our company, do we remember how important that relationship is that we built with them? So when you have a piece of business with someone and you say no, maybe you have 3 suppliers, one you've dealt with for, well, like Randy said, I think 20 years, or Julie said 16. And the new guy comes along and he or she does not understand why they didn't win your bid because they were the low bidder. Their project was maybe significant, maybe 4% lower than the other bid from your longtime supplier, and they don't get it. I hope that you educate them and let them know that stick around, keep coming back, and we'll get to know each other. Too often suppliers walk away and say, well, I didn't win that one. I'll never win at that company, and they stop calling you. I hope that you help educate them to be a better supplier for you by letting them know, keep coming back, be fair, be honest. Don't badmouth me in the business world because I didn't choose you. Now, where do we negotiate? And I want to keep on negotiation, but where do we do that? Emails, text. God, I hope you don't do too much texting to do a negotiation. Zoom and team meetings or what, Microsoft Teams or whatever. We have all kinds of places. Or how about going to visit somebody again? Wouldn't that be nice? I got together with a whole lot of friends in December. Everybody had to wear masks. And I couldn't believe at how wonderful it was to be together with a little bigger group to see one another. And I can only imagine what that's like when, again, at the company with the buyers who I was training, they hadn't seen one another for 3 months. And they had that little window where they got to come back in for about 4 weeks. And I couldn't hardly keep them from talking to each other. We had 2 people who were brand new on the job. They'd never met all of the folks that are in their team. They hadn't hardly met their manager except for on Zoom. So once we get the chance to go back, those are the best kinds of meetings. And when we have a negotiation, when we're face to face, we have better negotiations. Now let's go to texting. Going to save us a lot of time, right? Okay, tell me that you haven't exchanged texts or voicemails. Well, when can you have lunch? When can we meet? Well, how's Wednesday at 2 or Thursday at 9 a.m.? Well, no, I can't do Wednesday or Tuesday, but I could do Monday. I have been through all of those lately. Texting was going to save me money, and it doesn't. It takes more time to do anything. It's also, if you hadn't thought about it, when you're doing a negotiation by texting or emails, it's a lot easier for someone to walk away from you and just quit replying, and you never know why. Have you thought of that? They ghost you, invisible, and you don't have any idea why they just disappeared. I have 2 suppliers that way. Walked them through the house for the contractors. Nowhere. Haven't heard from them. Don't have any idea what their numbers are. Can't throw them out yet because they haven't called me back. Haven't checked in. How many other contractors do you deal with the projects and they disappear? One of the great things about negotiation from emails is you have a paper trail, you have proof, and you can reread them before you reply. So you can go, I wonder what they mean. I unfortunately read once, reply. I do not recommend that. I got a text one time from a colleague. He was in Chicago, I was in Kansas City. It was a Friday, I was tired. There were some promotions made within the big corporation that I worked for. And I replied to David in Chicago with, well, we all know why she got that promotion. It went to the whole company. My time there ended shortly thereafter. Suffice it to say, I really screwed up. So before you hit reply, read it a couple of times and make sure that you know what they said. I've also seen things happen where we're dealing internationally with people. And then there's the language differences. I taught a workshop for a company that was international, headquartered in Belgium. And they had a huge US presence, but many of their people are around the globe. And I asked the folks at headquarters, the US headquarters, I said, how many people you deal with is English the first language? 85% said, oh, all of those suppliers that we deal with, 85% of them speak English as their first language. Okay, China, you think? Dubai, the Middle East? But in their minds, they said the folks we're doing business with are international. But English must be their first language. What happens when we assume somebody's English? It's English is the first language. A lot of problems can happen because we misunderstand in the communication. More times than not, I have stopped an exchange or a volley with emails and texts and picked up the phone. and I train on that. When times get tough, when there's challenges, when we know there's miscommunications, don't fire off another email. Call them. We'll talk real time. And then we'll be able to work through it. And that brings me to then telephone. Sometimes the old-fashioned telephone, if we're not using Zoom, telephone's not bad. It adds one more modality. You can hear. You can hear their voice, their inflection. How did it change? How did the pace change? I was doing a negotiation one time. We had 4 parties on the call. My client, me, I was working with them on contract terms. And it was the managers in Dallas, the salesperson in Chicago, my client in Wisconsin, and me. And the salesman, when I asked for contract changes, he started talking faster. His voice went higher and higher. The more upset he got, he interrupted me. And the client's just listening to all of this. This was not visual. This was all on the phone. And eventually the bosses said, Mike, we'll take it from here. And Mike no longer was part of the negotiation. So even with the phone, things can happen when we don't control how our voice sounds, how the pace is, how the volume is in a phone call. One of the good things about changing from text or emails to phone, in addition, is that it doesn't cost us anything. We can have phone calls, we can have texts, we can have, oh, hey, kitty. We can have those other ways of communicating, but it doesn't cost us time or money to go travel there. We can still build rapport. Remember, know, like, and trust. We can still build rapport when it's on the phone, but all the benefits of Zoom or similar ways of visually seeing. What is your favorite go-to? I'm going to ask for a little reply again, a text on the chat. What do you like the most in communicating? Do you prefer phone, text, Zoom, or face-to-face? Assuming we could all go face-to-face again. How do you prefer to have it? Phone, text, and I'm going to use text and email together, Zoom, or face-to-face. Please give me some chat feedback. What are you, Rose?
Face-to-face, definitely.
Face-to-face, yeah.
I'm not good with texting. I misinterpret signals all the time.
We misinterpret. Good point. Anybody else? Have we gotten a few more to say? Which do you prefer? Most people hate to go face-to-face.
No. It's all face and then phone, is what Carol says.
All face.
Yep. Everybody's a face-to-facer. Yep.
Good. That also says we're confident enough that we can go face-to-face with people. There are those who never want to leave their office, never want to sit down over a cup of coffee. I'm delighted. And I figure the FMs that I know, that's the way it is. When I talked to Pam Cawson again, Pam said, there are projects and construction that's going on. I have to be face-to-face because sometimes we told the contractor, oh, there's heat ducts in that wall. And they cracked the wall and there were no heat ducts. And so now we had to sit down and work it out. Those are not things you want to do over the telephone, especially when going gets tough. That face-to-face that you all practice helps a lot when we sit down and we talk together with someone. And when you're doing that, there's a couple of things to watch out for, and we'll get to that in body language, some of the signals that we send. So our best practices: face-to-face when you can. Take time to build that respect, that know, like, and trust. Now, let's talk about what you say, because even on the phone, or face-to-face, we have options. In the preparation phase, I ask or recommend that you put together the questions you will be asking. You've examined the needs and wants, you've done the homework, you've done the research, you've stalked them like Rose does. Now we have to get ready and prepare. We want to discuss timelines with our team and what can we live with and what hill are we going to die on project timelines. Another one of the folks that another company that I taught, every supplier began to say, well, because of COVID, supplies are short, parts are delayed, we cannot meet any of our deadlines. Sorry about that. And again, the buyer said, okay. One of the buyers I learned from, though, said, well, I was asking for 400 by May 1. They couldn't meet my 400 by May 1, but what they worked out in communication, in a negotiation, was about 100 every other week. I hadn't thought of that. She did. 100 every other week, because it's not all or none. Sometimes we can get by with steps to get there. So let's look at when we get ready for these negotiations, there's 5 questions, and you may all have heard these: the who, what, when, where, why, and the 5th is a W or an H, how. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I have to prepare for the responses. What am I going to say when they say, why? Because we need it for the project. We've got to have it. We can't take step 2 if we don't have you with the resources. So you've planned the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Don't assume they will have them. You have to drive the conversation, whoever you're negotiating with, whether it's an employee, a colleague, or a supplier. You've got, the next phase is to talk about the resources that you do have. And I don't want anybody to forget how many resources we have within the IFMA. I know how many IFMA people find their next job because of their IFMA colleagues. The networking that we do in this association will buy you new clients, new suppliers, your next job. So we have those resources because you're a member of IFMA. And Tina shared with me, as members, it's called Engage. And I hadn't even taken a look at it in a long time. Engage is an open forum, an intra-chapter, intra-organizational communication piece. And Rose, I don't know if you pumped it lately, but it's a good reminder to everyone, the kinds of conversations when you can go to it and say, what do I do if or when? And you will get some great feedback. I was going through the feed this week and saw some excellent tips and connections made through Engage. So we have resources. This series of soft skills was developed. Tina Schaus, one of our members, said, we always talk about the technical stuff, but there's also the soft skills. And that's why Stephen Iverson did the one on how do you communicate better and be more effective in programs and meetings on Zoom. So now we're going to go into the vocal part of body language. And by the way, I want to remind you, I chose no slides because all I hear is everybody's sick and tired of slides. So that's why we're just talking. And I appreciate it when you give me a question. Rose is fielding questions that we'll use at the end of the session. So I'll throw back some questions. The Mary, what would you do if? When we are visual and when we're auditory, we're using some techniques. Mirroring, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you forgot about it. Mirroring is following what the person, either on Zoom, when you can see them, or in person, where if they're doing like this, a little bit later, maybe you put your hand up like this. Not exactly what they do, not like a mirror, exactly. But what it does is make them more comfortable with you. I lean forward in most meetings, just like I did now. Remember to lean forward towards someone. It shows them you're on the same team, that you're collaborating. How about restating what the other person said? And I love this. What I heard, usually the phrase, what I heard you saying was, is, and you reframe what they just said, but what I heard you say was, or did I get this right? What I understand it is, you got to have this stuff done at our, at the plant by next Friday. Did I get that right? So we confirm it with a question and we restate what we just heard. So often in a conversation, I know I am guilty of this. I start working on what I'm going to say next to sound smart. I get my next question. I'm building on looking smart, and I forget to listen. And people think that the art of communication is talking perhaps a lot. And if you apply the 80-20 rule, we're listening 80% of the time and we're talking 20% of the time. And then we know that we have a higher chance, I won't say it's perfect, but we have a chance of getting our communication right. If we get mad, if we show our anger, and we'll do body language next, but if we get upset and we show it on our face, people are going to pull back and they may quit telling you what's really on their mind. So not that you have to be a poker player and freeze your face, but I encourage you to try to stifle some of the, especially angry. I don't think you can show too much joy, too much happiness, too much smiling. But when the feeling is difficult for you, you have to watch. And a lot of the things are natural that our bodies do. But I'm talking about the vocal things. When, and I can reply to people different ways. And they say something like, well, you can start at your job the 1st of May or the 1st of April. And here's your pay. Here's the money we're going to pay you. Well, okay, start date works. However, and that means my family's got to relocate by May, but the schools aren't out till April. And they've forgotten all about the fact that you have family and children. They only focus, the HR folks, on the salary. How much more is there to negotiate about an offer? When I hear them say $80,000 April 1, is that the whole story? Am I going to make a decision about yes or no with a job if I don't hear more about it? Probably not. We get too focused, and that's just an example of HR, but we get too focused on one issue. For example, the price of a project. How much is that project going to cost? Well, if, and I listened to the contractors about my project here for the remodels on the bathrooms. We can't start it till August. One guy said August. One was July. Well, what if that's going to create a problem? My husband's health is not good. And what if that's going to really jeopardize his health if we don't get this bathroom remodel so it's accessible for him? He has limited ability to get around. That could really, but if the contractor doesn't ask, or if he doesn't say, well, how long are you going to keep this house? Because the $80,000 bid, if we're going to sell in 2 years, does that make sense? But he didn't ask that. He didn't say, how long do you plan to stay here? So 80 didn't work. We have to think of so many things when we prepare for the negotiation, all the issues that are important. And then if they don't bring it up, we have to bring it up. We have to know that they're considering it. Let's talk about what we see. And we've got about, what, 10 more minutes? So I'm going to try to wrap this in 5. Let me know if you have questions. Just say yes, yes, if you're going to have some questions for me, or no, so I don't save time. Because I have tons of stuff about body language, which is our next thing. But I don't want to cut into the questions that you have. When another one has to do with how quickly we make judgments when we see someone. It used to be, research used to say that we make a judgment about someone in 7 seconds. We see them, we judge them. There's a list of at least 7 things we can judge about another person in 3 seconds or 7. I will say, oh, they look like they have a college degree. Why would I think that? Or they're really good looking, and I begin to take another path because they're so handsome or attractive or cute or whatever. I make a judgment on their gender identity when I see them. And this is the world we're dealing in a lot right now. Ethnicity, their accent, I make judgments about that. I may even make judgments about their social background. All of these critical things in 7 seconds, or maybe now we're doing it so fast, 3 seconds. So how does that affect our negotiations and our communications if we judge them on, well, they talk slow, so they must be stupid. They must be lacking education. Be aware, and I plant these ideas of, do we make judgments and do we negotiate and communicate with people because of that 7-second judgment? And I'm afraid I am guilty, as well as maybe some of you are too. So let's talk about some things, a few more things we could say. Well, now I'm going to jump on to some other tools that say we need to, throughout a negotiation, especially when things are getting difficult, we have to summarize often. Think about it, summarize often. Because in any negotiation, when things are difficult, you know, there's squirrel, there's groceries, there's my kid coming home from school early. Think of all those things that come in, but a chance to summarize in any negotiation, make sure you're all staying in the meeting. You're all communicating about the same subject. It's also important if you've given a concession. If you've given in on something, don't forget it. Write it down, take a note, because you may say yes to something and you didn't write it down, and then you wonder about that commitment. I do it all the time. My husband has a lot of doctor's appointments. Oh yeah, I'll remember it. I don't always remember it. I got one of those this week where they said you're due at 2 on Wednesday. I thought I'd remember it. I didn't. When in communications, we, and by the way, did anybody say they have questions, that they're going to have questions at the end? No? Okay, I'll keep going.
I might have one for you, but.
What you have? Okay. We want to confirm by summarizing. We also want to confirm our understanding. Now, we all have agreed that we got to have this project finished by the end of March, right? And you confirm understanding. You summarize and you confirm understanding, so we know we're on the same page. Now we're going to transition over to body language, and I'm just going to hit some highlights because we're right at the end. But because in Zoom, and most of us are communicating these days with body language, we have to settle for about here. I mean, I could be wearing sweats and you won't know it. Some of you may be wearing sweats. I don't know. I hope you're all wearing something on the bottom half of you, but we don't know that anymore. Our body language is from here on up. So what are we going to do? We got to judge the energy level, because I'm known for high energy. I watch some of my own videos, and if you haven't, you really need to, because I don't smile enough. And I'm going to encourage you to watch the playbacks of some of the Zoom things you have and see if you look really upset most of the time, because right now, some of you look upset, you look tired. Your face carries the message. The smile carries the message. When we smile, or a true smile means it crinkles up here. How many people have you watched in a photo of a family gathering? They are not smiling, and you know that. Your gut tells you they're not smiling. Okay, how about this? Upset? How about this one? What's this? Just chat. Tell me what this look is. What do people say? Anybody reply?
Pensive. Annoyed.
Annoyed? Yeah, annoyed. That's right. What else?
Over it.
Mark Cuban is the one I see most often on television who does it. It's contempt. This one is usually contempt. It's like, I got nothing I want to hear from you. So when the corner of the mouth goes up, it's contempt. What about this one? I saw someone in a TV interview last night. Oftentimes I'm trying to control what I'm saying, or I'm lying to you. And a tongue is in the side of my mouth. What about this one? Did you see what I did? What did I do? Rose, what did you see?
You did like a quick sniff, like somebody said something you did not like.
Yep, that stinks.
Yep.
As quick as that. That stinks. It has to do with micro expressions usually.
Yep.
And you'll see a lot about this. It's 1/10 of a second, 1/60th of a second. It's that fast. But it's often the most accurate assessment of what you think and feel. The nose crinkles ever so slightly. Here's another one you may, and look at here and the nose. If you didn't hear it, what is it? What is it? Anybody? Turn your mics on, you guys. Turn your mics on for the last 2 or 3 minutes. What did you see?
I thought it was frustration.
Yeah, good. There's frustration, yes. Anybody else? When you see the nostrils flare and this goes down, it can often mean anger. So frustration, anger. You'll see lines down here between the eyes, and you'll see the nostrils flare. Others will just, at the same time, they will jut their chin out. That's defiance. So when we're having a negotiation and you observe this, whether it's face-to-face or on Zoom, watch for the chin jut, the furrowing of the brows, the nose flaring. How about shoulders? This one's common. You can't see my hands, but what does it say? What do you see? What words would come out of my mouth if you didn't just see that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Perfect. It's I don't know. I don't know. What if I move like this? I'm still here, but what's a shoulder turns towards you? Anybody? Cold shoulder, think of that. It's the cold shoulder. You'll see this a lot in a meeting where you're sitting here and somehow they move towards the shoulder. So that's just a taste of things that we talk about in body language, and there's so many subtleties to it. But what I guess for the summary is, when we add in our negotiations, when we get away from just the voice or the written word in text, we add so much more ability to have a more positive communication, whether it's a Zoom or face-to-face. It's richer in our communication. So I want to encourage you to watch the body language, to listen more to what they say, confirm what they say. And I guess the summary for me would be what Ken Scott said when he and I were talking about negotiation. It's the people. In the end, that's all that matters. It's the people with whom we negotiate, with whom we share a home. Negotiation, when we don't take the time to learn about the people, we can't know them, like them, or trust them. Those three essential things, know, like, and trust, happen when we enrich the method that we communicate by phone, not by phone rather, but by visual and audio communication. Now, if you liked what you heard, and I appreciate you all for coming, we're sharing, we did record this, and others who you work with can also purchase all the money, for this workshop goes to the chapter, that I'm doing coaching, one-on-one or in group coaching. Started that because of COVID and needing to be closer to home with my husband's illness. So I do a lot more coaching one-on-one. And if you'd like that, I'm offering a 30-minute free coaching appointment. If you think that's something you'd like, send me via chat, and we have this recorded, I'll see it on chat, your email address. And I'll email you back, even though that's not the preferred method of communication. I'll email you back and we can schedule a time that's mutually workable for both of us. If you'd like a 30-minute coaching appointment, so I can give you some tips on something that's always challenged you. Thank you all for coming today. I appreciate it. And since no one has any questions, unless you want to go into bonus another minute or two, shoot me a question. And I will answer if you want to, before we shut the line down, send a question and I will get back to you replying and answer your question. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about negotiation. It freshened your mind on things you already are doing and reinforced them. Gave you a couple new ideas. And it also helped you get rid of the things that you know are honestly not working for you. So I hope you have, I'm looking out the window, it's snowing, but have a great rest of the day. And thank you so much. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.